Come over here. We'll throw you in right in the beginning. Just don't sue me.
I promise
So we're talking throwing hard all season long. Big goal, right?
I won't. Definitely.
So, just what would be, because that's why I want to bring you over here. What are things you're going to focus on this year to maintain velocity all season long?
The biggest thing is, staying consistent. I mean, you got to get in the weight room. I mean, you don't want to overdo it, but
you got to keep your lifts
Yes,
through the season.
Of course.
And we'll talk about that with you and I when you leave as far as programming. But how hard is that in season to find those weight rooms?
Oh, it's not easy by any means, especially when you're on the road. I mean, sometimes, you're gonna have to spend a little bit of money just to keep, go out of your way basically to maintain what you want.
Anything you've done in the past, or are you planning to do in the future on finding, preparing to make sure you got a weight room when you go on this road trip or wherever you're going to be? Have you thought about that, or do you have any tricks of the trade?
I wouldn't say there's many tricks of the trade. I mean, the biggest thing is, the best way to do it is try to get a bunch of guys that want to do it. I mean, it's the cheapest way. I mean, you can always Uber now most places. At home, I know where I'm going. There's a gym that I can do everything that I need to do, especially for what we try to do here. But on the road, it's kind of a new league to me. I'm not exactly sure, but I guarantee you there's probably a few guys that, are looking for the same thing that I'm looking for.
What league are you going to be in this year?
I'm going to be in the Atlantic League, independent ball.
Yeah. So with things I would do, I would call, or, whatever city I was going to, and I would search a map and I would find gyms that in the area, and I'd start calling them and getting that daily price.
Mm-hmm.
So you get a good daily price, and you're right.
Yeah.
Maybe you get a group of guys just to split on maybe the transportation there,
Yeah.
and just try to get something obviously as close as you can, and do that. I mean, you're not going to be able to, you're going to have road trips where you miss it,
Of course.
because you can't. It just didn't work out. But trying to make it as frequent as you can is going to be ideal to keep your velocity up all season long.
Definitely.
Anything else? What would you say is a contributing factor to you keeping your velocity up to the year?
Biggest thing is trying to maintain what I'm doing now. Keep working hard. Try to eat as good as possible.
Nutrition.
It's definitely not easy.
Sleeping.
Yeah, and trying to get.
And that's hard on the road
8 hours
too?
of sleep. Yeah.
Any
Sometimes you
tricks
gotta do
eating on the
stuff.
road that you found to eat well on the road? Or you just are like,
biggest thing
screw
is,
it?
kind of like, what we talked about is basically, trying to find, kind of like you find a gym, kind of find a grocery store, find something, with a little better options. Not always you're going to have those better options, but sometimes
I
you
think
can.
like a lot of times the bus drivers are trying to get around, because everybody has their different flavors of what they want or taste, right? So they try to get you in an area where there's a bunch of different restaurants, and a lot of times I found there were grocery stores. I felt like you could do better at grocery stores as far as eating healthier and getting bigger quantities.
Yeah, definitely for your money, more bang for your buck. A lot of times, the bus drivers are usually pretty cool dudes. I mean, a lot of times they're just hanging out, so.
Cool.
They'll help.
All right, man. Well, thanks. I just wanted to see if you could give us some tips. Appreciate it. Back to training.
Throw gas.
Yeah, throw gas. Brent, the almighty Velo Father. Never heard that before, the Velo Father. What do you do when you find mechanical flaws in season that weren't present in the off season? That's a real big challenge. So you need to, when you do find that, you need to try to work back to where you were. So I like to have a base. So I usually tell guys, if you can do something like a lot of video analysis, or you can do the 4D motion sensors and get some biomechanical data of where you were through your off season, that's really going to be your standard as you go forward. Unless as you go through preseason, you make some good changes because you're throwing more consistently, and then you can say, all right, this is the profile that I want. I want to maintain this all year, and then you have to really constantly use that as your template, as your gold standard going forward, and compare everything off that. What's up? We got Gary.
Hello, everyone.
In the house here to represent, help us out. So if you have that from the off season, that biomechanical profile of where you want to be, then, and you're comparing to that, so then you can see changes. And when I've had guys go into season, all the way up to the big league level, I've done more of it there, where I'll actually have them sim video, and then we'll break down video, and then I'll compare it. One thing we did with David Ardsma a lot, like every 2 weeks, we take a video, run the biometrics, and we'd see what's changing. And I actually caught him like 3 months into the season breaking down. And we really started getting more back into the drills, what we were doing in the off season at that point, and we got him back on track, and he had a good finish to his season. And I think that's going to happen. I mean, it happens to a lot of guys, so be prepared for that. But if you have something of your off-season, preseason, a good biometric profile, or just some good video of you throwing at a good speed and everything was clean, you can use that as your standard and really use that kind of as what everything you're basing everything off of. And that should do it. They call me the Almighty Velo Father. Did you discuss how to set up to do the online 3x Velocity program and how the online program works? Thanks, Brent. So how do you do it? So if you go to TopVelocity.net, you can get the online programming. So there's different levels. There's the beginner program, the extreme, then the online course or the online camp, and then the camp here. And that's for pitchers. We also have position player programming at TopVelocity.net. And what happens is when you do the beginner program, it's just going to be beginner drills. It's still going to have the 3 calendar system just for a beginner program, which means you're going to have your throwing drills, your strength and conditioning, and your anaerobic conditioning. And then your throwing, you're just real basic stuff. Your strength and conditioning is just starting to get you acclimated to how we train. And then the 3X Extreme brings in the 3 levels of off-season training, level 1, level 2, level 3, with the 3 calendar systems where we have all those big med ball drills, like all the bulk of our drills and training are in there in the 3X Extreme. And you get the preseason, in-season manual so you can bring it into the season. If you did the camp or the online camp, you get the evaluation system. So now you get more really personal. It shows you how to measure yourself. You send it to me. I show you where your problems are. I show you where the goals are and how far you're away from your goals. And now you know in the program, all right, I'm here and I'm working for this. And it gives you more focus, and then you can reassess, reevaluate, and make sure you're getting better and you're getting better. It's an even more complete support system to what we're trying to do to get you to an elite standard of throwing or pitching through the program. So. And if you come here to the camp, you get to then work with me. You get access to the facility at any time, whenever you want to come back and refresh. And that's pretty much how the system goes. What other questions we got?
Do most guys who train with you for a summer see an increase in velocity?
Yes, I would say the majority of guys. What would you say, Gary?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I would say, everyone's different. So you can have some guys that might have gained 2 miles an hour, and then you have the other guys that gain like 10, 15 miles an hour. So it's going to be different, but there's no reasons gains shouldn't be made here unless you were either just so far behind you didn't really have a base, or you didn't work hard enough. My brother is Stacy, who you worked with. My brother is Stacy. Stacy, who I can't remember. Drawing a blank on that one. Sorry. Thoughts on ice baths? What do you like about it? You like ice baths?
I mean, I like them. I do them every so often just for I guess how it boosts your immune system, then also just the recovery factor to it as well.
Yeah, I mean, cryotherapy is good. There's opposing views on it. I've always liked it, specifically with my legs. It does really help your legs recover. I did a lot with the arm after rotator cuff surgery. Just be careful with the arm. I wouldn't go over 15 minutes because then your body starts to treat it like hypothermia and it actually starts to heat the joint. So you're trying to kind of constrict the swelling, because here's the thing. A lot of people say, well, the body, that swelling process is important. It is. When your joint swells, when you damage a muscle, the swelling is your body trying to bring nutrients in. It's trying to bring the garbage out, bring the nutrients in, and it's healing in that swelling process. But the problem is if it's too dramatic, like if the body overreacts, and people make it sound like the body doesn't overreact. If the body didn't overreact, we wouldn't have autoimmune diseases. The body can overreact, and if it overreacts or overswells, it actually can eat good tissue. So it actually can create even more, or it can slow down the healing process. So I believe when you have a real traumatic event, it's good to get some ice on to keep the body from overreacting. And then over time, if the body's not healing, it just kind of helps push out the blood and kind of restore the blood flow and get the healing process going and get it out of that inflammation. A lot of times when you're in inflammation, I know blood's coming in, but a lot of times it can sit and then it causes more harm than good. So use it sparingly, and same thing with the ice baths. You don't want to be in there too long, but it would be great to jump in for 10, 15 minutes and then get out. It really is good. It's supporting healing. There's a lot of research on that, even on the side of doing that, saying it helps stimulate healing. There's research saying it can inhibit it. Actually, I don't even think it said it inhibited. What I saw was it was ineffective, it was inconclusive. So, just try it out, see what you think. Do you think pitchers should be icing after throwing? Only if you have if your body just inflames. Now here, some people don't inflame a lot. Like I inflamed crazy all the time. My grandfather even passed away of like an inflammatory disease that leads to heart disease. So some people just overinflame, and also your diet can cause you to overinflame. So someone like me, I truly benefited from it. But if you're someone whose body just doesn't inflame that bad, I wouldn't say you need it that much. It's just really for those who really kind of helps them curve the inflammation response, which isn't bad. It's just if you have too much of it, it's bad. What do you want to add?
Went from 60 miles an hour to 80 miles an hour. Thanks, Adam and Brent.
Heck yeah, who's that?
Annie.
Oh, no, that's Anik. No, Anik Sturgeon just talked to you on email. I'm going to get to your videos. I just heard you had a lot of success. Pretty excited. They were at the Seattle camp.
Okay.
And I'm going to get your email. I've been overloaded with all this stuff going on. If you guys know, a lot of legal stuff going on, and having to go back and delete a lot of stuff and all of our content and what we've been doing. So I've been really overwhelmed right now with things that have to be done. But I'm excited. So big gains, and I heard both for I think your sister as well. But I think and I forgot. This is the mother. I forgot the boy and girl's name. I'm sorry. But I've been following, I've been keeping up, so I'm excited to hear that, and I'm going to get to those videos and kind of help that. Ideally for both you guys is both the kids is getting just the weight and building size as they grow in age. I think that's going to be huge as they continue to improve the mechanics and the strength and all that. That's going to be really important. So pretty excited to hear that. That's great news.
He also asked, when is it okay for a 13-year-old, 125 pounds, to go to 85 miles per hour? Grip strength, body mass.
Yeah, so if you look at the 3X goals, I would try to get as close to a lot of those as I could. Specifically with like the grip stuff, I would like the grip strength to be some 130, 140, because then you start. So here's the thing. Like, I just did an article. I would recommend reading the article I just put on the site under the pitching articles. You can see it on my Instagram, link to it on Tommy John, how to prevent Tommy John. So the force that causes Tommy John is called a valgus force. It pushes back, so it pushes here. So we have to create an opposing force the other way. So as it's pushing back, we got to push forward. And then what that does is it compresses the joint. So if the force back is 64 newtons, then the force forward needs to be 64 newtons. And that force comes through the internal rotation strength of the shoulder, the pronation strength of the flexor mass, which gets into the forearm grip stuff. But it's even more involved. It's more even into the strength into turning into pronation. So anything that's going to force the wrist to strengthen both in rotation and flexion extension is going to be really important. Having the strong upper body. We have to be strong enough to internally rotate against that valgus force. And after we release the ball, then there's this big deceleration force that we have to be strong enough to stop as well. So we have to be strength on both sides. We have to be strength resisting supination, and then we have to be strong resisting pronation. We have to be strong resisting external rotation. We have to be strong resisting internal rotation. So the overall balance of the shoulder and the elbow is really important. So I would want to make sure that his upper body strength's there. We say 150% to 170% of your body weight in your bench press. I'd like to see him being able to hold eventually up to his body weight. This could take time over his head and be able to stabilize it. I'd also like to see all of his good work in, his Job or dumbbell routines for the shoulder routines, tubing routines, because that gets into more of the rotational movements of the shoulder capsule. So, as you start pushing up 85 to 100 or 90, maybe 100 one day, we've got to make sure the integrity is here, the size is here, the strength is here to handle those speeds. They say up to 90, around 90 miles an hour. When you release the pitch, the force that pulls your arm out of socket can be up to 250 pounds. So I want, like I said, I want to know I can hold my body weight over my head for 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and I can press to that position too. Just more things that give me confidence that I can distract and protect my shoulder from those massive forces that start to come when I start throwing hard. Same with the elbow, creating that counter valgus or varus torque. What else we got?
What foods would you recommend for breakfast, lunch, and dinner to add on more lean muscle?
There you go. Go ahead.
I do way differently than I start my day off with a shake.
Me too. I do a super shake.
Yeah, super shake.
Tell them about a super shake.
I put everything in there: kale, spinach, squash, cucumbers, garlic, like beets. I put everything in there. So plenty of energy. Then I have a steak and just 2 eggs and cereal. So that's my breakfast.
Keep going. What are we doing for lunch?
I normally maybe just some fruit and tuna, because I don't have any problem gaining weight. So that's not my problem. So.
It's staying. Well, you and I, we're eaters over here. So our problem isn't eating. Our problem is when we eat all this food, how do we keep it? How do we burn it off, or how do we turn it into muscle and not fat?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's just the demand in your training. So as long as we're training, we can keep eating the way we want. If we stop training, we're in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
We're in big trouble. So what was the question again, just to make sure we got it?
Basically breakfast, lunch, and dinner to put on lean muscle.
Yeah, so it's calories, right? And it's making sure your calories are balanced through what's called macro and micronutrients. So macros are going to be fats, carbs, proteins, and if you know what's called your somatype, you'll know which one you should eat more of. Technically, we want to try to eat a good amount of protein. You could say 1 gram, 1.5 grams per body weight, somewhere around there. Depending, all this should be checked by a dietitian. You got to make sure your body can process a lot of protein, because people have actually killed themselves eating a lot of protein. You got to make sure your body can process it and handle it. Then carbohydrates, those typically guys probably more like Gary, more ectomorphic or endomorphic. You don't want to eat too many carbs. They probably store your carbs. You should eat a little bit more fats than carbs. I think I can eat a little. I'm kind of a balance of that. I can eat carbs. I can eat fats. I kind of need to be a better balance of those two. But if you're a really lean guy, you want to eat more carbs with a good amount of protein, and then micronutrients, making sure your food is just nutrient dense. People talk about organics and all that stuff. I know it gets expensive, but foods that have a higher content of micronutrients are going to satisfy you better, and they're going to provide more support to your everyday functions. And a lot of vitamin and mineral deficiencies lead to problems with recovery, injury, illnesses, disease. So trying to eat as much micronutrient-rich food, that's important. What else we got? Sun is a sidearm pitcher, naturally not a hard thrower, but very effective. Should his goal be, Catherine, Facebook cut you off. See where when it says see more, I can't see past that. If I click it, it doesn't allow me to see more during the chat. If you kind of maybe break it up in parts, I'll be able to get to it. How training for strong arm with resistance, I am pitcher. If you want to speak in Spanish, speak in Spanish. We have Alex here today. We can go get Alex. So please, you're welcome to speak in Spanish today, and I'll get Alex over here. What you got, Gary?
Do you think an ideal lower half is to drive hard off the back leg, but then relax the back hip into landing? How do you teach what the period between back leg drive and front foot strike?
So how do I teach what?
How do you teach what the period between the back leg drive and front foot strike?
The period?
Yeah, I guess
the timing. The back leg. Oh yeah. So, that's a good question. Like the timing of when your back leg drives is really important, because if we drive too early, we start jumping, right? So if I come out of leg lift and I'm right here and I drive, I start jumping, and then what happens is when I hit front foot, a lot of my energy is going up, so my trunk wants to stop. Doesn't want to move forward. If I can take that energy down and out, then my trunk wants to go down and out. And that's what we really want to get, that trunk to go forward and out towards the target. So that if what we have to do to get there is we have to ride this hip really long, all the way down here before we drive. So that means I'm waiting till literally just before front foot strike, just before this front foot wants to go down. That's when I'm gonna drive. And the key is to get that back leg force vector as linear as you can. And we talk about that. Didn't you send someone to that video?
Yeah, Alex and
I forgot the name of that video, but it's something like
mechanics of the back leg drive.
Is that what it is, or something? Yeah, I think I got another one on Instagram TV that's, you know, the 100 mile an hour or lower half or something like this. But it's also in my training series, TopVelocity.net/lower half. Free training series. We go through all that in the lower half. Any thoughts on cortisone shots for inflammation, scar tissue? Ultimately, everything we know about cortisone now, I had like 8 of them in my elbow before I tore my rotator cuff, is we should avoid cortisone as much as we can. It inhibits healing, it eats tissue, it can destroy joints over time. Go back to those running backs in the NFL who just did it in between, you know, quarters in their knees, and most of those guys can't walk or had to have full knee replacements. Probably leads to massive, serious arthritis later in life and just deteriorates the joint. So I would say avoid cortisone at all costs. Better inflammation supplements are like turmeric. I think turmeric's a great one. You can get it in a liquid format is really good. Any other natural supplements you've taken for inflammation? Omega-3s.
I mean,
yeah,
as far as
pineapple's
this,
a great
yeah.
one. Pineapple is also a good one. And just eat less boxed foods that have like cheap oils in it. That causes a lot of inflammation. So you want to get not rancid, you want to get healthy oils like fresh olive oil, avocados, fish oil. Those will reduce inflammation. The other ones can increase inflammation. What else we got?
In season, I tend to get bicep pain, and it will linger to the deep anterior delt. What role does the bicep play, and what could be causing it?
So the bicep decelerates the forearm. It helps also stabilize the shoulder a bit. The bicep tendon goes from the ulnar, or the bicep, yeah, the bicep goes from the ulnar. Actually, I'm going to get this wrong. Let me just show you. I'll show you here in my app. You can look at it. Actually, I just had it open. So I go to this all the time because as much as I think I remember anatomy, then I wind up forgetting it. So here's the bicep short head, and the short head goes into the corticoid process. The brachialis behind it goes into it, and then here's the long head. And the long head, I'm going to get up closer when I do this. The long head goes up through what's called the tuberosity of the head of the humerus, through over the shoulder and becomes the labrum. So this is when we have slap tears. It's because the bicep tore the labrum, and that connects right there into this one. I think it goes into the radius or the radial bone, and then the short head connects, I believe, into the ulnar. It's hard to tell. It kind of connects onto a little bit of the long head tendon as well, but the brachialis below it goes into the ulnar. So what that's doing is it's pulling back the arm into flexion, right? That's why we curl. But it's connecting one into the labrum and the other one into the front or the shoulder, the scapular, which is the corticoid process. So it goes into the shoulder. So it's a shoulder stabilizer. So what's happening is when you release the pitch, your arm's going into extension from your back, pushing all the energy forward, and then that's having to pull it back so your arm doesn't want to dislocate, right? So if you release that and you're releasing it pretty hard, then that bicep's having to grab pretty hard. So what happens is if your bicep's getting weak because you keep doing that over and over and over and over again, and it's getting weak, and then it starts knotting up, and then you keep doing that, and it's just yanking on those insertion points, you know, the origin and the insertion point, and it starts to cause the inflammation. We've had cases where with guys we've seen where it creates an edema in the bone starts to rupture, like, because it's literally pulling apart. And so the key is keeping the bicep density down. We want the bicep to be able to stretch and stay nice and soft We don't want it getting hard. If it starts getting hard, it starts really ripping into those insertion points. And like I said, a lot of that is weakness or just fatigue, like real fatigue. So it does really work when you're in those areas to reduce your throwing or bring your throwing down. Two ways you can bring down. You can bring your amount of throws down, or you can bring your intensity of throws down, and help. That alone should over time help it heal. If you're at a point where it hurts so bad, you might have to stop throwing because you just keep injuring it and injuring it. The other thing is you could be, it's going to be a link to biomechanics. So you might be finishing with your trunk up, and then your arms wanting to extend really hard to pitch release, and your elbows having to, or your biceps having to decelerate that, as opposed to pushing your trunk out and your arm doesn't want to fire into extension. It actually has now time to quickly turn over into internal rotation. And when that happens, all right, somebody just called. And when that happens, it's a little bit less that grabbing stress. So work on getting your trunks moving forward. And also, pronation really relieves the stress. Force some pronation. I'm not recommending you pitch like that, but just to keep your arm healthy, you might have to force some pronation, and you'll feel the stress come off your bicep. I used to do that. If I get bicep pain, I used to force pronation, and I would lose the pain at the point where it normally would hit, was with that deceleration point.
What do you think of the 90-mile-per-hour formula?
I don't know much about it. The only thing we've gone back and forth is, with our, for example, with our formula, the 3X goals that we have established for 90 miles an hour. We have a lot of power measurements, a lot of field measurements, and a lot of mobility measurements. So I haven't seen those with his, but I'm not sure. I mean, I've just seen what people show me have come across Instagram. So I'm not going to say I know his stuff. I don't. But we just make sure in our formulas we have everything. We have the mobility, which is critical. We have how that needs to measure. We have the strength aspects. We know how that needs to measure. We have the power measurements, the speed measurements, the motor control, ability through the biomechanics, the biomechanical things we have to achieve. I don't think it's possible to say you'll beat a 90 miles an hour if you don't have the mobility of a 90 mile an hour pitcher, if you don't have the strength, speed, or power of a 90 mile an hour pitcher, and you don't have the biomechanics. And we make sure you do it all. Now, yeah, you could be really poor in strength, really good in speed, really good in mobility, and be able to have some decent biomechanics. I'm not saying every 90 mile an hour pitcher has it all, but that's what we're going for. We're going for it to be as elite as we can. What else we got?
This is coming from a mother, I think. It's from my son. He's 16 and a pitcher. In season, I tend to, how many days a week should a pitcher run?
So, I mean, that's programming. So that's going to be either in season, preseason, or off season. In the off season, it shouldn't be running, it should be sprinting. We typically do that 3 days a week. And the preseason and in season, it goes down about 2 days a week, you kind of can say 2-3 days a week. Our loading and the lifts come down, so you can keep the sprinting up, and it's so important that sprinting really does help keep the fast twitch muscle fiber hypertrophied, helps build the endurance in those anaerobic movements that are really important. But it's sprinting, not running, and it really needs to be programmed in with your whole approach, like we do with the TopVelocity program. So, what else we got?
Does your back squat ratio have to go up above 2 times your body weight to prepare for 1.5 power clean?
It helps, yeah. It doesn't have to, but it does help. But you'll find it sometimes. You'll find some guys that have like crazy high power cleans and really average squats. But it does help. It does help to drive it up. It's not everything, Power is the ability to generate force quickly. In squatting, you're not doing that. But if you think about power, it's the ability to create force quickly. But still, there's a level of force we have to create, and that's what the squatting is helping us get. But you still need to be able to activate that, and that's what a lot of the plyometric stuff helps. Just a lot of the cleaning helps. So the strength just gives you the base to generate the force. Then you have to go out and build the rate of speed that it takes to move that force quick enough to catch the bar in those cleans, and that's important. And that's why cleans convert well to power sports or dynamic sports, because you're forcing you to move force quickly in the similar amount of time it takes to move force in a pitch, a throw, or swinging the bat.
This is, I guess, relating to the bicep pain. He says, well, a lot of bicep pain comes from throwing a curveball or forcing pronation, and it makes my bicep and my right arm, to be honest, useless.
To be what?
His right arm is useless, to be honest. That's what he meant to say.
Well, if you do throw a curveball, it creates a slight delay of pronation because you have to hold that supinated position slightly longer. You still pronate, you just hold it slightly longer, supinated, and that's why it could cause more bicep pain because you're going to be later to pronate. Specifically, if you start to fall on the side of the ball and you start going this way, then it has to come all the way around. So you do need to be careful with curveballs if thrown incorrectly, or if you have some bicep irritation. I believe they could make it worse. Try throwing a changeup, like a circle change, where you pronate really early, and if it feels really good on your arm or better, then it is related to, or the pronation is helping you. You also typically throw those a little bit slower. But you might be in a place where you need to back off your throwing to allow the healing, and then you need to get it stronger and get better mechanics to get away from the abuse. And that doesn't happen quickly.
What do you expect for max percentage increases after 8-week cycle?
Say that again? Oh, yes, yeah.
What do you expect for max percentage increase after 8-week cycle?
Everybody's different. Why don't you go into it? Like when you were training, say, the Bahama boys, like, you had some guys making good gains, some guys not.
I had to pay attention to what they could do. Like, each of them were different, so I had to really pay attention,
So what, after 8 weeks, like some had better results than others,
yes.
right?
And some could actually move up, and then actually we just stayed the same until we saw.
So talk about, like, why did what were those guys doing that made the gains? Did you see the difference between them and the ones that didn't make as much gain?
I guess when they came in, the ones that didn't, they've never really worked out before. So that was.
You were just building a base.
Yeah, building a base with the first ones. But
and then the other ones, they were also, I'd say, like Dylan worked harder.
Yeah, his mindset was a lot different than.
Yeah. It's going to come down to your base foundation, which, we'll build that. It takes time. But if you have your base, and it comes down to how hard you are willing to work to go above that through the programming. That's the key. Will there be more 5'6" MLB pitchers? That's a good question. I think it comes down to, yes. I mean, they won't ever be the averages, but of course, potentially, yeah, it will, unless there's more 6'8" pitchers showing up throwing 105. Matt Marksberry, y'all know D.
What's up?
Marksberry's the man. We're excited for you, man. I know Congrats. I know you're probably getting fired up. I saw you throwing up some cleans today. Look good. I like how your coach is telling you to don't jump forward. Matt Bruce will tell you to jump back. You want that weight going back. I'm excited for you, man. I know you didn't get much of an off season, so we hope the best, man. What do you expect as an increase in percentages for each 8-week? He asked that on here too. So that was the same answer. Everybody's different. Obviously, you want to be making gains. If you're not making gains into an 8-week cycle, you're well into a plateau, and you should have changed a long time ago. You really need to be doing those weekly assessments as much as you can. Hey, I'm going to test my vert today. I'm going to test my broad today. I'm going to test some mobility stuff today. And if you just see things aren't changing, you need to go up a level in the program, make changes. Typically, you got to start working harder in what you're doing. Having problems on pushing the ball instead of feeling that whip on my arm. So your legs could be shutting off. You could be getting lazy down here, and now you're trying to pick it up with your arm. That's the problem, is when we lose the energy down here, we have to overcompensate so much. And you feel like, man, I'm moving my arm so much faster. Why am I not throwing harder? It's because of the overcompensation factor. So Kibler and Chandler calculated that when you lose 20% of kinetic energy that comes up your body through your hip and trunk to your arm, when you lose 20% of that, you have to overcompensate with the rotational velocity of your shoulder at about 34% to keep the same velocity or same force on the hand. So, it's a 20% decrease is a 34% increase up here. So that's almost double. So You all of a sudden you start losing your leg power, you're losing your good lower half, and now your upper body's trying to overcompensate, but it can't keep up with that almost doubling the energy to keep the same speed, and you could be in that place. I've thrown the same velo since 11th grade, and I'm a freshman in college. I've done the 5+ day videos. I just can't seem to find anything that works. Any advice? I mean, I would recommend you come to a camp. So if you're sick of screwing around, don't flirt with it anymore. You just come to the camp, you sit down here, you learn it, you let me kick the butt crap out of you, and I'll show you how your body will change and adapt, and I'll get you to get out of that mindset. What do you want to add to that mindset?
As far as what?
So he's saying he's thrown the same speed since he was in the 11th grade. He did my little 30 days to 5 miles per hour. Nothing's working. What should he do?
Come to a camp.
Right, well, that's what I just told him.
Simple as that. Yeah.
That's what I told him. So, but what else? Tell him about the mindset.
I mean, when you're investing in your future, you have to do whatever it takes. It's like a musician that wants to play drums, and they start out with pots and pans, and they boom, 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 and then they want to get serious about it. They invest and get a brand new, set of drums. Same thing as a pitcher. You go through, the simple stuff at first, and then as you, like I said, want to continue to invest in your goals, you'll start, really investing. If you believe in yourself, you're going to invest in yourself.
Yeah, and that's a big one. If you believe in yourself, because a lot of guys will go, well, what if it doesn't work? Well, then you obviously don't believe in yourself, or you don't believe in the program. I get that, but we got enough information online for you got to realize that this is legit. Then it comes down to you got to believe in yourself. You got to make a commitment, and a commitment is you believing that, hey, I'm going to go there. I see the system. I understand how it works. I'm going to go there, and I'm going to be like all these other guys who were these 90+ mile-an-hour testimonials who applied themselves, worked really hard. I mean, we see gains in here all the time. I mean, it happens all the time. Yeah, I know. Really, really cool stuff today, and it's a mindset. And tell them what's the difference between the guys that come in here and just kill it, and make gains. What's the difference in their mindsets and the other ones?
They always pay attention to what their goals are and not get, frustrated or down about what they're seeing at the moment. It's their focus, basically. Their focus and their attitudes. They never get down. They always, if they get frustrated, they use that as energy to, push them harder. Yeah, fuel.
That's nailing it, man. It's like nothing really rare. I mean, it happens to everybody, but rarely do they get to a point where they got nothing to go to. If usually those guys, man, if they're getting good feedback or bad feedback, it's feedback and they feed off of it. The good stuff gets them all excited and gets them goosebumps, and then the bad stuff, it just gets them angry and pissed and fired off. But if you put yourself in that same perspective, then you always have energy. Good or bad, it's energy.
Yeah.
And therefore, you're going to succeed.
You just have to know how to use it.
You're going to succeed, or you're going to, die trying. That's that old saying, right?
Yeah.
So mentality is huge, but, don't get me wrong. I've seen guys with the right mentalities and with the wrong approach. It's like they're trying to throw the ball 300 and 400 feet, long toss, and they're not in the gym working out, and they're running long distances, and, they had gains in the beginning, and it capped out. And now they're starting to have arm problems from all that overuse of the arm. And to me, that's not an approach that's going to bring you to 100 miles an hour unless you were genetically gifted to do that. That's my opinion, and that's what I've learned through my years of learning this and the experience of doing this. So you got to take those mentalities, those good, hard-working, determined mentalities, and you got to put them in good approaches, and that's the formula, right? That's what makes it work. It's the same thing in business. It's like, yeah, you can work your butt off, but you can get nowhere, right? The people that are very successful, they not only can work hard, but they work smart. They put it in the right method to get the most out of their time, right? So you got to be able to do that in baseball too. You want to go over there? No Spanish over here, Alex.
This is
not seeing any Spanish.
This is in relevance to the 90 mile per hour formula.
Huh.
What did he say? This is in relation to the 90 mile per hour formula. He says, I didn't know you guys use power cleans. Dr. Heenan doesn't really do power cleans at all. Are there any substitutes, like using med balls?
No, there's no substitute for power cleans. A medicine ball weighs what, to the most 25, 30 pounds. we're going to eventually teach ourselves to move about 300 pounds. So you'll never be able to generate the same amount of force, increase or generate the same amount of force in a short amount of time you will with a 300-pound on the bar as opposed to a 30-pound med ball. They would never be the same ever. I mean, what do you think?
Not even close.
It's not even close.
Not even close.
I mean, how would you compare that to? It'd be like saying,
lifting a feather and a brick.
Right, exactly. It's like if I lift a feather really fast, will I be able to pick up a 300-pound brick one day?
Yeah.
No, it's not going to happen. And the point is your body is forced in that heavier weight to move and hypertrophy fast twitch muscle fiber and activate more motor units and move more force faster, which then when you don't have that weight and you're on the mound and you want to move your body down that mound as aggressive as you can, not just your arm, move that body, the guy who can move more weight that way is potentially going to move their body faster in a similar way.
Why do you think contralateral tilt is linked to increased velocity?
That's a good question. With contralateral tilt, so that's leaning towards your glove side, so leaning away from your arm. The reason not in rotation and just tilt is what that does is it puts your arm in a position when it's cocked to want to stay here. If I'm leaning ipsilateral here, once I cock my arm, it just wants to fall. It wants to go. But when I'm here, it's like someone's trying to pull my arm back, and that helps hold my shoulders closed when I'm trying to separate hips from shoulders. Also too, when I turn, now there's less centrifugal force fighting against my body. If I'm here, I got all this centrifugal force trying to pull my arm that way. When I'm here and I'm coming over the top this way, there's not a lot of centrifugal force going that way. A lot of the centrifugal force will start going this way with gravity, pulling me down. But when I'm up here, it doesn't really want to pull me down, so I have all that less centrifugal force trying to pull my limbs away from my body, less of that, which is going to allow me to carry more of the energy in my core towards the target. So that's a good question, but that's why I believe contralateral tilt really, really works. When y'all going to get high performance slow-mo cameras to assess grips, movement, and tunneling? Jake, that's not what we do. I think it's a great process for working on pitches, but we teach performance biomechanics, how to optimize your body. I think that's all great. Once you've put your body in a good place, now I can go out and design good pitches with it. I think it's a great thing to do that, but we're not going to do that because we got enough trying to teach the body, and I believe we're one of the best at doing it, and it's incredibly important because that's where health is and that's where performance is. Everything else is just an addition to that. Now I know in high levels of the game, what they do is they just go recruit better movers, and then they get them into pitch design stuff, and that's great. But we're here trying to help the guys that aren't being recruited as the better movers. We're trying to help them become better movers. Let's see. How hard would a 5'6" pitcher have to throw to get drafted? Get drafted. I don't know, man. That's tough. Today, I mean, it's more than just velocity when it comes to getting drafted, but obviously he'd be throwing in the 90s and then have some good pitches, some good movement of those pitches to complement it. And then, he has the ability to use it and compete with it. Just watching on YouTube, had to jump on here and say how awesome the Super Shakes are. I love that stuff. Awesome, man. So do I. Got a PRP injection for UCL partial tear. What can I do? Exercise to heal it? Therapy guy said I can do things that don't hurt me. You need to strengthen your forearm, your bicep, triceps, your shoulder complex, your entire body, and you need to learn better movements, better mechanics to reduce stress at the end of the chain, and you need to manage your throwing loads better and not allow your body to make big jumps in your throwing load. So, I mean, ideally, I would recommend come down here to a camp. We'll teach you more how to stay healthy and how to move better.
I'm triple extending and my drive leg is sliding, but almost at the same time as my front foot is landing. Is this still okay?
Well, if I'm assuming when you mean sliding in triple extension is there's not rotation, which technically is not triple extension. Triple extension would be in rotation where the hip is extending, right? Now, if you're sliding this way, dragging, I don't think that's what you're saying. That wouldn't be a problem. Sounds like you're driving and it's not rotation. There isn't any rotation. So I'm just going to go off of that. And that, like I said, isn't triple extension because your hip's not extending. You're probably obviously very tight in the hips. You need to work on your hip mobility. But you're at point 2 where you could be transferring weight and there really isn't any much drive. You're transferring early and your foot's getting caught dragging behind early. So you need to stay loaded longer. The Velo Pro belts can help with that. TopVelocity.net/Velo Pro. And you might be already open, or you have a poor relationship of your front leg opening to your back leg driving. And we talk about how those need to be synced up. You need to sync up your front leg rotation or opening to your back leg driving, because this will trigger rotation. Like once this opens, everything wants to go. This needs to power that movement at the same time. So this one opens and then lands, and this tries to drive too late. When this opens, the moment it opens, we have to drive, and then that will power rotation in that movement. So you're probably poorly rotating into your back leg drive, more than likely transferring early, which is causing it. Let's see, is cortisone necessary when scar tissue is causing problems in joint? I mean, I would go to a doctor, a surgeon for that one. Using cortisone to eat up scar tissue, I don't know, man. I wouldn't give you the best advice on that. You need to talk to a surgeon who cuts tissue all day long, who knows how that works. How do I get my 16-year-old son to buy into the process when he's throwing 90 now with mechanical flaws and could possibly improve another 2 miles per hour? What do you think?
That's a tough one. It's just like a lot of the pro guys said, like Arjuna, when he was talking about when he was at the height of his career, it would have been hard to tell him something.
David said, and going with his story, if I'd have came up to him when he was doing his best in Major League Baseball and said, hey, you got these flaws, he'd tell me to go screw myself. Which that's the problem is you get, just talk about the guys we've seen around here that start to have success. It's like their egos get really big, and then they don't keep wanting to work at it. And sometimes because of that, we see them a year later and they're 10 times worse.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just having that hunger and being humbled at the same time, right?
And then just, I guess he has to look at someone else's journey as well. And when anyone that's ever traveled, they always want to get better. They don't want to stay at where they are. Like even if he's throwing 90, why doesn't he want to throw 95 or 99? And you want to take the approach of what will it take for me to get better? And that's just my thoughts on it. And his mechanical flaws are going to catch up with him. Like he has to, I guess, like I said, pay attention to people that are doing it the right way, and just compare himself to them, and then maybe that may shed a little light on the situation.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think using other idols or other people to compare to, like Trevor Rosenthal's a guy who, he's had Tommy John surgery. He's taken on 2 years, and he's really, really driven to get himself mechanically into a better place. I mean, he's up against some big hurdles in how his body moves. But he's really determined to do that, and he needs to see someone like that who's had a 6-year big league career, who's going back after Tommy John surgery and kind of reinventing himself and understand that. And I mean, I've seen guys come into here that had great careers, and they're literally trying to start all over again, because that's just how it works. You fall off the horse sometimes, and you need to understand that. Usually the guys at the higher level, they ask more of the questions and they're more willing to learn continuously, because they know at any time you could be not on the top of the mountain anymore and you're working your way back up again. And the more information you get, the better chance that when that happens, you can get up a lot quicker. You're not down there forever. And I think Gary said, he needs to look out for idols, the guys that are the top level of the game that are really still hungry to learn and never trying to reinvent and rediscover their talents, What is the best indicator of future velocity in an early teen? What's the best indicator of future velocity in an early teen? I'd say looking at the parents. If you have a dad who's a great athlete, I think the great story is like Mariano Rivera, who's just inducted in the Hall of Fame. His son played I think baseball when he was little, and then didn't want to play it anymore. And his son was really short compared to Mariano. He came out really short, and son got away from baseball and played soccer, and then got something like junior senior year of college or something like that, and decided that he wanted to play baseball, and he was lights out, and then he got drafted pretty quick. Looking at him young, he was probably the shortest guy out there. You'd probably be like, this is never gonna be a great pitcher. But then you look at the dad. Like, the thing is, like, you never know how the genetics are gonna come out. The parents tell you a lot. They don't tell you everything. But I think you got to know what the DNA is gonna do. And if you can predict that, Major League Baseball is going to want to hire you because that's how they recruit. So, any advice for a 14-year-old with an avulsion fracture of the right elbow? So, you just got to take it as if you have a pretty tough injury. It's not the end of the world. I went through this, tore my rotator cuff at 18 years old. You can get very depressed because you start missing out on a lot of the game that you could be competing in. So you do need to be aware of the fact that if you can just focus on your injury and heal yourself, you're going to learn so much that when you get back, you're going to be so much better because of it. So you got to really look at it as there's blessings in injury. The only negative to it is the loss of time, and you're never going to get that back. But the time that you lost, you need to learn, and that's learning what happened, and learning how to heal your body, and learning how to become more self-aware to optimize and put yourself in a better position. So then when you get back, that loss of time, you'll never get that back, but you gain things in that time that are going to allow you to be better as you go forth. And then you'll appreciate that later in life. You'll appreciate what it did for you. You'll never forget that part of your life and how it sent you in this other direction, ultimately to be a better person. Don't let it take you down. Don't commit. It's the coolest thing I'll never forget. I really enjoyed watching that. Remember we watched Will Smith in here. I brought it up before. And he was going to jump out of the helicopter and in a bungee cord into the Grand Canyon. And he's just like anybody. I'd be peeing on myself. He's standing up there and he's shaking, and the guy next to him looked at him and says, you have to commit. He said, you have to commit, because if not, you're going to convince yourself not to do it. And it's the same thing in these situations. You have to commit to where you're going to go, because if not, you're going to talk about, and you're going to let all the negative things in that are going on, and you're going to let that ruin you. So at any time you're in adversity or you're scared, you have to commit to what you're trying to achieve, just so you can get all the negative stuff from trying to take over your brain. So once you commit, you create that tunnel vision and nothing gets in the way. And then none of that negative stuff takes you down. And that's where you are right now. You really need to commit to what you're going to do with this. You're going to learn from it. You're going to better yourself. And then in a year, you're going to get back to the game. And I think that's the road to success from an injury.
What's the main difference between a program like yours and a powerlifting split like the one I'm doing?
So when you say split, powerlifting split, so I don't know if you're talking about phasing things out.
I think that's the one that wanted to know about, can you, no.
So I would say it was the split. Are you phasing things out? Is that what you mean? Like I'm splitting strength phases to speed phases to power phases, whatever. If that's what you're talking about, that's a separate question. I'll answer that later. If it's not what you're talking about, it's okay. But powerlifting, here's the problem with the powerlifting. Now, we do powerlifting stuff in here. Powerlifting's typically strength movements. They say a better name. Unfortunately, I think the name powerlifting has misled a lot of people. And a lot of the powerlifters, the professional powerlifters will tell you this. It's better called force lifting, because power says that there's time. There's that rate of force development, that time it's going to take to create the movement. There's no time intervals in power lifts. You can take all day. I believe you can take all day with them. That's typically squats, bench press, deadlifts, stuff like that. We do that. But Real powerlifting is Olympic lifting, where you have to catch the bar, so you have to throw it up. So you have a short amount of time to get the weight going so you can catch it. So it's that rate of force development that it creates to move that force in that short amount of time. That is by far the most valuable thing you could ever do. One study showed that the second pull, the hang clean, was 5 times more power pushed out than the deadlift and squat. And that's crazy valuable when you get on in any power movement, throwing, hitting, running. That's what your body's going to tap into, that ability to generate force quickly and explosively in short seconds, short moments. That powerlifting, unfortunately, does not demand. It's not a demand to squat in a short amount of time. It's not a demand to deadlift in a short amount of time. Yeah, you could force yourself to do it, but you're still not going to move as quickly as a clean, because in a clean, you can't fool it. You're either going to move it fast enough to get it up and catch it, or it ain't going to work. And you can sit there with a deadlift and try to pull it fast, but it still never would have moved the bar at the same speed as a clean, unless you got a tendo unit and you're sitting there and you're trying to move it at the same speed. But at the same time too, the act of catching the clean and the act of perfectly moving the bar up makes the central nervous system, the kinetic chain, move perfectly to technically create a clean movement, an efficient movement. You're not going to really get that in the power lifts unless they start to become the Olympic lifts. I can see it. Like, you're going to sit here and you start deadlifting quickly. You're going to start trying to catch your deadlifts, and now what am I doing? I'm cleaning, right? So that's why you need to, I believe the Olympic stuff with the powerlifting stuff is the better approach. We're just telling you guys there's no alternative for Olympic lifts. We do everything else. We probably do what you do, but we don't replace the Olympic lifts with anything else, because they don't, and they're highly valued, and they're a big part of our testimonies. It's just hilarious. We sit here and try to find all these alternatives to powerlifting, and every single one of my testimonials says one of the keys to their success for the powerlift, or the Olympic lifts, the power clean. So you're trying to get us to find alternatives for the tools that are creating all our testimonials, and unfortunately, you're not going to have success. That's what we found. Do you ever have college guys come and work out all summer instead of playing summer ball? I pitch at UK and explain options. Oh yes.
All the time.
Tell them what the summers are like.
I mean, it's packed in here. Like, they're building and rebuilding.
The summer's our busiest time. I mean, it's annoying. It's so busy. Yeah. I mean, we're exhausted by the summer. It's hot as well. So yeah, we'll have 30, 40 guys in here in the summer. I don't think we had more housing last year. We're not going to have the housing this year. But there's a lot of apartment units around here that people can get into. But we do have housing if you want to reach out to us.
Hi, I'm Isaiah Huerta, I think, and I'm in a Division III baseball player in Texas. I recently injured my UCL with a 15% tear. I currently throw 85 and was wondering how to increase velocity with my recent tear.
Here, the body is going to lay down scar tissue and eventually really provide a lot of structure to it. You can support a lot of that development through strengthening. Now, strengthening also too is going to put the muscles around the joint to give it protection. So I would want to add a good 15 to 20 pounds of lean mass around my body. I would also want to improve my biomechanics. So I think you're fine. I wouldn't want to rush back into it because it needs time to heal and scar tissue the area. I mean, I do recommend PRPs. Some places, if you can find that, will legally do stem cells. I mean, I've just heard a lot of good healing things about that, but I don't know, there's a lot of medical laws with all of that you need to look into. I think that helps specifically in the initial healing process and to get that scar tissue to lay down. And then, like you said, you got to take this off season and just build the strength, power, mass, and better mechanics. And that's what we do TopVelocity. So you'd be a guy who could come down here and we could really give you that programming. I can throw 90, but can only throw a med ball 42. Does this mean that I have biomechanical deficiencies when throwing a med ball? So typically, depends how big you are. Typically, the bigger guys throw the med balls harder than the smaller guys. So if you're on the smaller end, it could be just the fact that, it's just you have more speed than strength in your movements. When you get to the heavier objects, you can use more strength. that's why when the bigger guys typically can throw the med balls higher, and then they go, and Instagram already shut down.
It's been an hour. That's fast.
Wow, man, this thing's flying.
Yeah.
So the big guys typically can throw them harder, the med balls harder, because when they go to the baseballs, they don't speed up. So that's the challenge. So in the same time too, you could find the med balls that you aren't separating well. So a lot of your basically your separation is coming from hyperangulation. Are you dragging your arm at 90 to create that delay? And that's actually unhealthy. So it might even be an indication that you're unhealthy at 90. But yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting things there, and that you can improve on. That's going to help you either in health or in performance. What time is it, man? It is late. It's 6 o'clock over here.
Thoughts on West Side model of max effort, dynamic effort split?
So, like once again, we're going into, can I take a deadlift and just move it really fast, or can I do jump, a back squat, jump squats, all that stuff? I'm not going to promote jumping with the back squats, because the load on the back, I'm concerned about. I still have those concerns with the cleans, but I feel like it might be a little bit more in the back squat position. Plus, where the arms are, you could really strain the shoulder. So I would rather see a clean than a back squat jump. What would be the other one? I think deadlifts with a jump would just be clean pulls. So now you're getting into the Olympic stuff. So I don't really know the variations or the alternatives you're trying to create here. And once again, they're never going to challenge the central nervous system to coordinate the kinetic chain as efficiently than with the Olympic cleans. That's why typically when they take power lifters and they put them into Olympic competition, the bars are flying all over the place. They don't have the coordination that the Olympic lifters have. So here's the thing. Yeah, you get power from the Olympic lifts, but you get coordination, you get efficiency, you get a smooth, optimized kinetic chain that I typically don't see in just pure power lifters. What else we got?
Gus, he said, to explode with force to create directional force.
Should what?
To explode with force to create directional force. Gus.
Yeah. Landis. Yes, that's the man right there.
Carlo, he wants to know, how do I prevent the bar from flying forward in a snatch? Yeah.
How would you what?
How do I prevent the bar flying forward in a snatch?
Well, we don't snatch here unless you've been in this program for a long time. So it takes a lot of upper body strength to snatch. So we typically steer guys away from the snatch and just clean until one day you get really good at the kinetic chain movements, you really get good at the overhead strength. Like if you can't sit here and hold, your body weight over your head, I don't want you trying to throw your body weight in that position. So I'm concerned with the snatch. But what was his question on what is happening with the snatch?
How to prevent it from flying forward.
So flying forward will ultimately be, that's the one thing with all the Olympic lifts. The bar has to move perfectly up the body. That's why you have to constantly organize the body as you generate power, which really challenges the central nervous system, making it an efficient kinetic chain. So what's probably happening is you're getting probably too far over the bar, and now the bar is moving away from your body. So it's a technical improvement in getting lower and getting in a better squat position and not popping your butt up, moving your hips and shoulders up together at the same rate to be able to compete or complete that lift. How long should a single preseason workout last? 2 to 3 hours or longer? Preseason, we typically, here's what's happening. You're throwing more. You're in your bullpens, and you're putting more stress on your arms, so you're going to have to bring your loads down. So, yeah, I'd say 2 to 3 hours. But what you're doing is you're replacing like a lot of your volume of lifts with more throws on the mound. Technically, more throws on the mound. So I would say your time doesn't change, but if you're just saying outside of throwing, yeah, probably 2 hours, maybe 3. But if you're adding in your throwing, now you're like 3 to 4 hours or so on top. So just remember, it's like the volume of throws go up, the volume of lifts go down into your preseason and season. All right, we can take, we're going to take one more here. I can't believe we get any Spanish. We offered Spanish because we had Alex here. No Spanish. Great info. Keep pumping it. Thanks, C. Greatest agent in the world. I throw 85. Is that bad? I'm 18. No, it's not bad, man. Keep working. Sidearm sitting 82 as a senior. Need to increase. Yes, you can increase it with us. You're going to learn how to optimize the kinetic chain, how to move it overhead, and then we're going to teach you how to then bring it sidearm.
A lot of players and some physiotherapies say the barbell bench press is not good for throwing slash your shoulder. What is your take on that?
So typically when you're on the bar or on the bench, your scaps are going to be a posterior tilt. That's a good position to be. They're going to be retracted. It's not a bad position to be, but what's happening is it's not going to move. So it's going to be a lot of humeral translation, a lot of flexion extension of the humeral head, and we're going to build the pecs, the pec major, pec minor in that movement. There's nothing wrong with that. These are accelerators when our arm lays back. But here's the thing. If that's all I do, and I don't build good scapular function, and I don't build good posterior strength, overhead strength, it's going to look bad. So the problem is like people are like, you doing upper body work? Oh yeah, bench press, and that's it. Well, that's the problem here. It doesn't mean the bench press is bad. It just means that can't be the only thing you do. There's a lot more that has to be done.
Then their technique might be bad. They might just be using nothing but arms to push the thing instead of their chest.
And the other thing is, it is the only lift I'm concerned about with spotters, because I don't want you to drop the weight on you. So a lot of coaches probably get just nervous on the fact that people got to spot this, and it is dangerous on that aspect, because if you don't have a good spotter and you can't hold it and they drop it on you, you could be really hurt or dead. The other thing is, because everyone's limited about, the average is about 25 degrees of horizontal abduction, which is right here, that I'm not even on my chest yet. So if the bar's forcing me into a hyper, flexed position, then that could damage my shoulder. So I get it. There's more risk factors in the bench press, but if you use blocks where you don't go past your end of range, and you have a good spotter, it's a good place to be. I think that's the problem, is just some risk in just doing it correctly. All right, so a lot more questions. I was excited. I think it was the first time we never got to all of our questions. Instagram ended on us, and we didn't get to half those questions. And we should be able to do this next Friday. So pretty cool. Any last words you want to say? Any motivational stuff going into the weekend? Super Bowl weekend?
Oh yeah, have a good time. Be safe. Who you guys going for?
I'm a Saints fan, so to be honest, I really don't care. Yeah. Like, I'm still, unfortunately, I don't want to say I'm the pissed off Saints fans, because I'm kind of annoyed by them right now, but I'm not happy.
I'm going for the Patriots.
You've gone for the Patriots?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you don't want to see. Right. All right, well, I think I'll watch the game. You're coming over to my place. Yeah. We're going to watch the game with the old man.
Yeah.
Watch the old man get all fired up. All right, see y'all next time.
Saints supposed to be in there.
Yeah.